This episode of the Copyblogger podcast is brought to you by Digital Commerce Partners. Every online business needs traffic, but the wrong traffic is worthless. And if you're paying for traffic that doesn't convert, it's worse than worthless. What you need are qualified prospects primed to purchase your digital products and services. Digital Commerce Partners offers a strategic approach to traffic that helps your business win big. Since 2006, Copyblogger founder Brian Clark has been teaching creative content marketing and effective SEO. And we've practiced what we preached, building an 8-figure bootstrapped software, online education, and hosting business. Now, you're the one with the great digital products, maybe an online course, virtual community, or a SaaS product. And you've got a tried and true sales funnel that converts the right people into customers. Well, it's time to fill that funnel. Not with any old traffic. You need your type of people. And our strategic content marketing process will bring them to you. New customers are the lifeblood of your digital business, and yet it's the quality of your products and services that will ultimately determine your level of success. With digital commerce as your partner, the return on investment will be clear. Your existing offers will be more profitable, and you can focus on developing new products and growing your brand. We build profitable digital commerce products and businesses for ourselves and those we work with. For us, providing content marketing and SEO services to clients was the last step, not the first. As the agency production arm of content marketing pioneer Copyblogger, Digital Commerce Partners works with you to deliver the prospects you need to succeed. Let's explore how we can help your business win. To learn more, simply go to digitalcommerce.com. That's digitalcommerce.com. Hello, and welcome to the Copyblogger podcast. My name is Tim Stoddart. Thank you so much for joining me. In today's episode, we speak with Pat Walls, the founder of Starter Story. Starter Story has had huge success over the last few years, and Pat credits most of that success to good SEO that leverages user-generated content. Pat's brand and his method in creating his business is one of a kind. One of the things I love about Pat is that he is a scrappy entrepreneur. In this episode, we talk a lot about the mistakes he's made along the way, the experiments he's done, and the lessons he's learned. We also talk about how he built a team of employees and also contractors that fulfill the roles he needs at the time. And finally, we finished the conversation talking about Pat's revenue models. It was really cool to listen to the evolution of the business and to learn about the trial and error process that Pat leaned into that ultimately generates the most money and delivers the most value for his users. Pat was a great guest, and I'm so happy we got to talk. Please help me welcome Pat Walls. All right, brother. Well, Pat, thank you so much for joining me on my show. I've been reading your blog. I've been following your story. You and I actually met on Twitter a while ago because I asked you how you were creating those automated social media featured images, and you shared with me, it was called Placid, I think. I don't know if you remember that, but that's how I started following you.
Oh, wow. That's so funny. Yeah. My friend started that company, Placid. It's really cool. We use it for a ton of stuff to create basically automation with images. So put dynamic text on images. It's cool software.
Yeah, it is cool. So point is, I've been following your story for a while. I think this is a little bit different of a show because we really don't know each other at all. Usually I have like some kind of relationship, but we'll be sort of getting to know each other through this podcast. So let's just dive right into it. I want to hear about Starter Story, man. You've hit something with this idea of mass volume of content and with personalized stories and individualized experiences, and it's really working. I'm an SEO man, so I check out your site from time to time, and man, the traffic that you're getting is absolutely crushing it. So let's just jump right into it, man. Tell me about how Starter Story came into play, and just give me a little bit of insight about the journey.
Yeah. Well, I looked at recently the date, and it's been almost 4 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of a trip. Sometimes you feel like you're going not fast enough or too fast. So That's crazy. But it started in 2017, and I started, I just come off of a failed startups, tried to build a SaaS with some friends, first, journey into entrepreneurship. And
Yeah.
after that, I wanted to start something on my own because, my co-founders from before didn't work out. And I kind of caught the startup bug, I guess, and I didn't really know what to do. So I just started with this idea of interviewing entrepreneurs about how they built their business. And I figured maybe, this could be a blog, and then I could meet people or find a new idea through that. So back in 2017, I would, interview people, and they would share how much money they're making with their business. That was kind of the theme of the blog is you tell me transparently how you started your business and how you grew it, how much money you make, and we'll publish the interviews. And then, it just kind of took off from there. We just, back in the early days, it was just purely interviews with entrepreneurs because we were sharing those revenue numbers. And there's this other website called Indie Hackers, which also did the same thing, but they were more focused on software and developers. We were in the early days, like talking to e-commerce startups, so people who were, selling physical goods. So we went with that angle, and then we just kind of, took off from there. And now it's a lot different. We do a lot more content. I would consider us more of like a media company. I say that with quotes, but a blog versus a media company. So we're doing like lots of different stuff. We have employees now and all that, but it did start as just a simple interview blog.
Yeah, isn't that funny how anything that I've ever started, well, even the things that have failed, what it turns into is hardly ever the thing that like you planned for it to be. I've almost accepted that part of the journey now, where you can't get too attached to your idea because, like, I don't know what the expression is. I'm not trying to sound too like meta here, right? But like just the energy of life or whatever will take it to where like it's supposed to be. It sounds like that was your experience. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So where was it in the timeline where you were able to take a step back and say like, hey, I think there's something more going on here than just simple interviews with upstarts and revenue numbers? Like, when did this transition from an interview blog into a media company come into fruition?
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because it is important to follow the energy. And the reality is, I didn't really take it fully seriously, full time, thinking that this was it until last year.
Wow.
Because I'd actually, after starting, my goal was to, just do these interviews and then find something new. And I had started another business about 2 years ago, I think, that was a SaaS. And this is after starting Starter Story. And I thought that was going to be it. Like, that Starter Story was just kind of a way to pay the bills and that sort of thing. And I was going to start this new business. And that long story behind that, but I ended up finally, sometime last year, it took us to actually did what's called a think week, and where I just I was working so hard, and I was experiencing burnout, and I just took a week off, and I just drove around the United States, and I just thought about everything. And that was the moment that I realized that, okay, Starter Story is the business that I should be working on, not this new SaaS or this, like you said, like you have this, your idea of what will work is probably not what will work. It's usually something small like interviewing entrepreneurs that becomes the main business. So yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. Did you just get in your car on a whim and just start driving around like, I'm feeling fucked up, I'm feeling burned out, I'm gonna go drive around for a week? Or did you at least, I don't know, pack some food? What
Yeah, no, I
happened?
mean, pretty much. I had this Marriott deal because my dad works for Marriott, so I
Okay.
could stay in hotels for like $30 a night. And this was like 2 months after COVID happened,
Yeah.
or it's maybe 3 months after COVID. So I was like super pent up, and I just said, screw it. I'm just gonna drive to the new city every day, and then just find a Marriott hotel and stay there, and then just drive again. So I drove like 3,000 miles. It didn't end up costing all that much money,
Where'd
but
you go?
I went all around the West Coast. So I went through Utah and Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington,
So
and
cool.
Montana, Wyoming.
What was your favorite place?
Yeah. It's funny. I spent all the days driving and all the
Yeah.
nights just staying in a hotel. I did like Oregon. That was the first time I went to Oregon, and went to Eugene, and Eugene was really cool. I like that a lot. And I've been in California for like years with college and after college, so I've seen all that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Oregon was my favorite.
Yeah, I know I'm drifting off a little bit, but my wife and I in October or something, she was pregnant, and we wanted to like travel a little bit more before we had this, little dude in our lives. And so we did the same thing. We spent a week in Oregon, which I had never been there before. Any experience on the West Coast has been either snowboarding in Utah or just chilling in Los Angeles because I got some business partners in LA. And Oregon was really, really beautiful. And we got to see the redwoods as well. And
Yeah.
you see the pictures of it, but I'm telling you, I even made a video of it. Like I've never felt so stupidly insignificant before than when the trees are 4 times the size of anything that you've seen before. So I can relate. We did something similar. Took 2 weeks off. It was just like I am sick of work and I am working way too hard. I've been doing this for way too long. And it was like, yeah, I don't want to be too dramatic, like a life changing experience, right? But it was exactly what I needed at the time. So I'm happy that you got to get that.
Yeah. I mean, I think taking time off is, and I should do it again this year. It was the best decision I could have made, and I did. I kind of did it on a whim. And who knows if I didn't do that, what would be the outcome? Because that's when we saw the 6 months after that. You can look at it on a graph, is where the business really started taking off. So,
Wow. Okay. I'm going to get back to starter story, but I want to touch on this a little bit because you've written about it in your personal blog a few times on on patwalls.com. And I can tell through your writing that you're still sort of figuring it out a little bit, but I can also tell that you're having these ideas, these thoughts, maybe questioning, the internet entrepreneur status quo about like, oh, this is who I am, and everything is about creating content and like tweets and likes and share. When in at least my feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you and I are going through a little bit of the same experience. We're like, you know what? Maybe it's better not to do so much, take some time stepping away from the work and just making sure that the work that you actually put out there is of maximum value. And I know I'm paraphrasing you a little bit, but I can just tell through your writing that you're sort of questioning some of these ideas. I'd love to hear about them.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's this theme online that got to be on Twitter and Instagram and do everything at once. I think, yeah, over time, I've learned that it's important to just focus on one thing if you can. I mean, today I played tennis for 2 hours, and I'm going to go play tennis again for another 2 hours. Focus on things that you like to do, and you're going to get the same amount of work done, even if you work 4 hours instead of 12 hours, as long as you, really focus and work hard in that time. And there's so many distractions. There's Twitter, especially, and social media is just a huge distraction. And really, the only way that I've learned to those how to handle that is just over time and building a business and seeing what has worked and what hasn't. So I think it's just that there's so much pressure out there to be all these things at once. I don't know.
No, I think it's important to talk about that, man, because with Copylogger, we offer a few products and services, but there's a community called Copyblogger Pro, and when I'm in there and people are asking questions, you can feel that tension, right? You can feel that um, that well, you said pressure. I think it's even more than that. It's this idea that if we're not putting something out there 24/7, then like we're never gonna make it. Because you go on social media for 1 second and you see the people with like a couple million followers, and then over time, I've learned that the people that I really look up to, especially the men and women that have built really, really significant businesses that like mean something to them, they're not doing that. They're spending all of their time on like important, meaningful work where you don't necessarily have the dopamine hits that come with it, but you have like the real meaningful success. Um, I've noticed that. Is there anybody that like you've seen that is setting that tone for you that's changing your mind about it?
Yeah, the thing is, like, you don't really see them, and that's kind of the point. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
a lot of these people that you look at who are doing, a lot of Twitter or all that stuff is like that is their business. So
Hmm.
they're building a brand around their name or their business, or they're in um, news, or I don't know, whatever they are. So a lot of the people that are just behind the scenes, you don't hear about them, and um, I think that's kind of hard, especially because now everything is virtual. So you only see the people that are loud and proud. So I think it's gotten a lot harder. And um, I guess, yeah, your community that you mentioned that's one of the best ways to meet people, or to get inspired by people, is to be a part of like some sort of online virtual communities. And in the beginning, when I first started my business, I was a part of a couple online communities that really, really helped me
Yeah.
grow. And it's just like, there's just like a chat, or there's like a Telegram chat or that sort of thing. And that was like, I just feel like it's so distracting to do that on Twitter, and to follow a giant feed of people that are screaming. That's tough.
Just yelling.
Yeah,
Everybody listen to me.
it gives the wrong message. It's just like there's just a huge difference between building a business and building, like a personal brand. Or uh, if you're doing anything other than that, then um, we need to think of better ways to have communities of entrepreneurs, or just like how to, better books to read, or better ways to get inspired than just to go on Twitter.
I think there's a distinction to be made. What you said, the lines are so blurred right now, but there's actually a difference between building a business and building a following. And like it could be so difficult to see the difference between the two, because you automatically assume, oh, this person has 40,000 followers, like they're successful, where it's all, in many cases, unless you have something really valuable to offer, it can totally be an illusion, where the only thing that, the person with 40,000 followers is selling is some kind of info product on how to get 40,000 followers. And it's like a weird thing, you know what I mean? It's this weird cyclical um concept, whereas writers like myself and writers like you with Starter Story, where that's why I always try to advocate um, the value of having long form content, that the people who actually have interest in reading it are going to be there to sit and like take time to absorb the information and consume it, as opposed to, just the scroll or the next dopamine hit, and I think that's coming back a little bit. I think people are starting to see the value of like storing all of your content, write meaningful content for the people that actually want to read it, and then build not just your audience, but like your tribe of people through that mechanism. And you've been having a ton of success with it.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, to building slowly, and building maybe not through just channels of Twitter and getting followers. Like I think of this guy, his name is Matthew Paulson. He started marketbeat.com, really, really big, successful uh, finance and stock media company. Um, but he doesn't really have any following at all. And he actually wrote like a couple books, and you never really heard of them or anything like that. But those books have been like one of the most helpful things for my business, because he runs a similar business as me. And those books were like, amazing. But, it's not like the typical really successful book from, a successful author that you'll see or hear of, that are more mainstream or household names.
Yeah, but that guy's probably killing it.
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome, man. He's got like, I think he's out of South Dakota or something like that, and he's like really like focused on the startup community of South Dakota. Can't remember what city, Sioux Falls. And he's like investing in South Dakota businesses. He's building small communities. He's like doing a bunch of stuff for his community. And he's not really focused on like the Twitter world. He's more focused on like his like smaller community. So
Yeah.
and that's inspiring to me, I think. And he's more in it for the long haul. It's like, I think he's been working on his business for maybe almost 20 years now. So I think a lot of people think that, with this kind of hard and fast entrepreneur lifestyle where you grow to 1 million followers in 1 year or 2 years. But I think kind of slow, more, human to human building of community is a more powerful, long lasting way to build a business.
Totally agree. I think that's something you learn when you get older. I shouldn't say you, it's something I've learned as I've done this a while. And the difficult thing there is learning how to be comfortable without instant gratification. Because kind of what happens is you're 5 years down the line, and I never had that moment where it's like, oh man, I made it, right? Like I never ever had that moment. However, when I look back in it, it's like every year was a little bit more positive than the last year. And so you're almost sacrificing that movie scene, right? Where you get to stand with your trophy and be like, oh, I did it. But what you're gaining in return is like that actual peace of mind of success that I actually wanted. So it's such a juxtaposition there, but it's one worth noting.
It's so hard to zoom out like that. Like I was just looking at, I was just mad about that our traffic didn't grow month over month. Like it was the same as it was last month. And then I was just like, you're like, oh, why didn't we grow 20% like we usually do? And then I went and looked, I was looking at the spreadsheet of traffic, and then like, oh, we've 10x traffic in 1 year. If you look at the traffic from last year, from that month, it's 10x smaller. So like, it's really hard, especially as a business owner, to really be able to zoom out, because, you get used to what seemed impossible a year ago, that's now feels normal. So it's this constant, desire for more that can be, especially because you're just so stuck in the details. You're so focused on today and right now that you forget about the big picture.
There's this really analogy that Steph Smith, she wrote about, and she told me about it. Her and I are friends, kind of. We're internet friends, right? And so she gave this really great analogy where every time you take another step up, all you see is the one more step in front of you and the one more step behind you. And so you take these incremental growth steps, but your perspective is still just where you are in the present moment. It's like, oh, I didn't get to that one next step, where, like you just said, I'm basically reiterating your point, but to be able to have the self-awareness to really zoom out and be like, oh shit, look at like the 100 steps I just climbed over the last 3 years. And the thing that's brutal about it is, we can talk about, it's like, oh, like, wow, such high class problems. But I think a lot of people quit because of that mental game, like the 2 years down the line where it's like, I've been working at this for 2 years, and like, when's this really, really, really going to take off? Whereas the 5 years of continuing to build the steps day upon day is really where it happens. And so I get not worried, but I get just concerned, I suppose, about all the people out there with great ideas and great things to say that quit too early just because they couldn't recognize the incremental progress that they had.
Yeah, I think, my mindset kind of changed on it over the past couple of years. It's like, I know that I want to do this, just, business and entrepreneurship and starting businesses. I'm hopefully going to be able to do it for the next 40, 50 or 60 years. I'm not really someone who wants to like retire early or something like that. So
Me neither.
If you know that you're going to be at it for the next 40 years, a couple of years doesn't sound so bad, So I think it's just, learning how to, not to be so focused on instant gratification, and to enjoy the process, enjoy the daily kind of grind, daily work. And, just know that, if as long as you enjoy what you're doing, then eventually you'll get where you want to go, even if it takes you till you're 60 or 70.
Yeah. Hey, let me know when you figure that out. All right. I could all use that advice. So that's really cool, man. Thank you so much for being vulnerable in that way with me. That's something that I think a lot of us feel, and very few of us are willing to actually acknowledge. Let me pivot back to our original point a little bit. I always want to make sure I provide like some technicalities with the people that listen to this podcast. Starter Story seemed like it went through an evolution of what it was as a business. You seem to kind of be hitting a stride right now. And so, what are the ways that you're actually creating revenue from this? A lot of times, what happens is you get a lot of traffic, and it's like, oh shit, what do I do here? Like, how do I monetize on this traffic? And I've I've been through those struggles and that journey of like stumbling over all the rocks in front of you, right? So where did you land with that? Like, how are you making money from this, and how's it going?
Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting topic, especially for your audience. We started by native advertisements. So we
Yeah,
found a company who wants to get in front of our audience, and they are an email marketing tool called Klaviyo. Amazing company, like kind of like a MailChimp competitor, more advanced version of MailChimp. They've sponsored our newsletter for the last almost 3 years now, and hopefully they'll continue to sponsor it. Um, and that was really effective especially in the early days when we didn't have a lot of traffic, or we didn't have a lot of brand recognition, or we were just
yeah,
started. They were able to sponsor us for a fixed amount per month, so that basically I could go full time. I mean, living cheaply, it was enough to just kind of keep the thing going and focus on growth, which I liked. It was like more of a sturdy, strong sponsor rather than like a one-off sponsor. So that was huge. And then right now our revenue is very diversified. So I do have a lot of opinions on this topic. But after that, we decided to try out a premium membership. So we have like a New York Times style model.
cool.
We have an article limit, and you can pay to unlock that limit. And then we also have certain gated features on the website. So a lot of times we take, and this might be an interesting thing to talk about later, but we'll take our content and we will kind of build databases around it, or our databases will become our content and vice versa. So if you want to, find a business idea, we have 5,000 in our database, and you can pay for the membership to get that. And we also run programmatic ads on the website. And then we also have a bit of affiliate marketing. So just like your normal affiliate links. So we're like very diversified in our revenue, and our revenue is like $43,000 a month right now. So
Nice.
it probably could be more if you focused on one, but we're
Yeah.
profitable, and we like very, I feel confident that not if one source of revenue or something happens to the business, we'd be able to kind of rely on the other ones. Yeah.
Was that intentional? Did you intentionally seek out to diversify, or was it something that just happened organically?
Yeah, I think, intentionally seek out to diversify, especially as we become more of, I now think of us more as a media company.
Yeah.
And as a media company, you have so many options for the type of content you can do, and also ways that you can reach people, like through different channels such as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, the blog, whatever. So there's also lots of opportunity to try different business models. What I really love about, and I've embraced not doing a SaaS, but doing a media company, is that you can just try lots of things, and like you can break a lot of things. And one decision probably is going to break your business. I really, really enjoy that. I've embraced that more. I think that's one of the more fun things about starting a business like this, and why I would tell a lot of people who might want to start a software business, think about a media business, because it can be, especially for someone like me, I like to try a lot of different things. And I'm a software engineer by trade. So I think starting a media company is like really fun, and allows you to have fun and experiment.
I couldn't agree more with that, man. I think that Well, it's probably not so much anymore because it's the verdict is in, and the likelihood of you actually being able to hit peak scalability with the SaaS product is very, very low. Uh, there's this rage 10 years ago about you got to get into SaaS, you got to get into SaaS just because they're so scalable, right? But I see maybe not quite the same scalability with media companies, but it's pretty damn close. And the thing that I like more about it is you don't need, you know, $2 million in upfront capital
Mhm.
to start a media business. Like you need that for a software product because somebody's got to build the thing. And it's hard. Like that is very, very expensive time and that is very expensive work. Whereas if you want to start a blog, can be about anything. Like it really can be about anything. The thing that I think is so cool is that if you're interested in something, other people are going to be interested in it. And it can just be the most random, esoteric example. I was talking to Ethan from The Hustle the other day, and he was saying something very similar. He's obviously more into newsletters, but he was going through examples of people that he saw who started successful newsletters. And I use the examples like, yeah, like you can do cutting your grass and start a newsletter. And I put that in the podcast. And when I posted the podcast, some guy posted a link of his YouTube channel and blog that he wrote, and the whole entire thing, his whole entire media business is just about him mowing his lawn. And I think he's making like 30 grand a month from like affiliate products and advertisements with lawn care stuff. And I think from a practical standpoint, that is there's such an easier access to entry to go in the media route as opposed to going, like the product route.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're fully bootstrapped. We were making $200 a month, $400 a month, $600 a month, and
Yeah.
we figured it out. In the early days, we were running the site for $30 a month. So that's where you can start. You can have a profitable business on day one. So I would say that that's an amazing way to get into entrepreneurship, and especially if you don't want to make, like you said, the SaaS model. If you want to change your pricing model, if you want to go freemium or whatever, that could break your business. Like a simple decision can break your business. It's a lot more do or die, I would say, in a software business. So media business, you can kind of screw up, and I'm always screwing up. I've screwed up so many times, and
How
just
so? Like, what are some of the painful lessons that you learned?
well, the SaaS business that I started after starting Starter Story, I put almost all my effort into that. Let's say 90% of my time was dedicated to growing that, and 10% of my time was dedicated to growing Starter Story for about a whole year. And that still didn't break Starter Story's business. It still lived on, and I was able to catch myself and realize that Starter Story was the right business to be spending 90% or 100% of my time on, and that one was not worth working on. And my business still lives on, and maybe maybe we'd be a little bit further in our journey, but it's still okay. It doesn't break the business.
Yeah. You mentioned just liking to experiment and try new things. Give me some examples with that. Like, what are some of the things that you tried and clearly like this isn't going to work? And maybe some like surprises that you had where, oh, wow, this is working better than I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like we tried starting a community one time, that didn't work.
Mm.
And I think what I love in the experimentation side is like how we experiment with content. So we just have taken, and the reason why we've grown in SEO so much is our experimentation with content. So we say like, okay, is this like this kind of content? Do people want this or not? We can experiment with it. It may take a couple days to come up with this style of content and see if people like it. And sometimes, with SEO, we can see the results of it. So are people searching for this in search engines, and can we rank number one for this? If we do, then we can not. I have this course. Last year, we had so much growth in SEO, and people were interested in it. So I said, okay, maybe would you guys be interested in my methodology? And that's kind of our methodology. So I did a course on it. Is just trying like tons of different things, and not having like a, too much ego or pride about your ideas. Maybe 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 10 actually works, but that's how we've seen a lot of growth, is just finding what people want through experimentation.
Yeah, I love that. I can't tell you how much time and stress I've wasted and put onto myself just because I was convinced that like this is going to work, where you find out that this other thing that you tried and hardly paid any attention to is just what people are searching for. And so, the faster you get out of your own way, the
Yep.
better. So, let me stick on this one for just a little longer.
Sure.
What are like some of you mentioned you had a community that didn't work, and you experimented with some different ideas with content, and a lot of them were working. So I'm looking for actionable steps that people can take away from this. Like, what were some of those things that ended up sticking?
I think what really worked is we just thought about what, we do content about business and entrepreneurship. People that want to start their own business, what kind of questions do they have? What do they need help with? And this has kind of been my like general thesis about starting businesses in general, is like, how can you help people? One thing that works really well for us is like, people want business ideas. How can they find a business idea? So we did a ton of stuff around business ideas, like, business ideas to start for introverts or couples,
Cool.
that sort of thing. So we did like tons of content around that, and we built our business ideas database. Because at the end of the day, that's helping someone find a business idea, or maybe they're trying to find a name for their business, or they want to know how much it costs to start a business, or what are the right tools to start your business. So we think of things in terms of like, how can we help people? And then how can we create content? Like, what are the questions that people have by talking to people or just doing online keyword research? How can we create content around that, rather than some idea that you have that would work? Like, okay, we just thought maybe that people really wanted a startup community, but people didn't want to be a part of the community, or the community just wasn't solving people's problems. It was more just like talking about businesses. People wanted business ideas. That's what we found through that. A lot of those experiments is that was what people wanted.
Brian Clark, he's the founder of Copyblogger. If there's one thing that he's constantly taught me and drilled into my head, is like audience first, audience first, audience first. For some reason, certain people gravitate towards certain brands, and it can be challenging because you think, okay, Copybloggers writers, and I've had the urge to put in other ideas, maybe around video type content, or maybe around podcasting. Like, we have a podcast, but even the data that we says the podcasts that do the best are people that wrote or that built businesses through writing. And so the more and more we analyze it, the more and more we see the Copyblogger exists for 2 reasons: long form SEO content that, like you said, basically solves a problem, and conversion copy. And like, that's it, man. And it's such a funny thing where success will bring the desire to grow, right? And a lot of times the way to grow is to get smaller, as opposed to just bringing all of these other ideas. And I was hearing that in your story, where for whatever reason, the people that gravitated towards Starter Story, the people that were looking for business ideas, so you saw it, you just doubled down on it, and now look where it's got you.
Yeah, I think that there's so much opportunity, and it doesn't mean that you have to go bigger. It really means that you can dig deeper within the existing opportunities you have. And the longer you spend time in the details, digging deep and understanding what people want, like specifically for you, for like, copywriters, like all the elements of copywriting is such a vast array of topics, right? You could write about it forever. You probably haven't even talked about 10, you've only talked about 10% of everything. And the deeper you get, what I've learned and what I try to tell people is like the deeper you get in industry, the more opportunity there is, and the more like you feel like you can't get enough done. Like for example, I've been playing tennis a lot for the last year. And when I first started tennis, I thought it was like pretty simple. Like there's forehand and there's backhand and there's serve and that's it, right? But as you get deeper in tennis, you understand all the nuances. There's slices, there's volleys, there's just so many different elements of the game of tennis. And I'm only 1 year, and I know that after 3 years or 10 years, there'll be even more.
Yeah.
If you're starting a business about a small topic, it may sound like a small topic, but it may actually be, a massive topic. Like cryptocurrency is another good example. Like it's at its surface level, it's a simple idea, but as you dig into the rabbit hole, there's endless topics and ways to approach it, I guess.
You're so right about that. And it's like a scarcity complex, I think, where there's not going to be enough here. But even the quote simple concept of copywriting, right? It's endless. You can get as detailed as you want with geez, even off the top of my head, if it's almost like the more specific you go, the easier it is to come up with new ideas because like you mentioned, there's nuance, and you don't have to open up like a different compartment in your brain. You can just dig deeper into the compartment you have. And I think that's a really great piece of advice for people that maybe, have written 15, 20 articles. Maybe they got like 1,000 people on their email list. And I think about self-comparison a lot. And you see some of these other brands that have like a million email subscribers. And it's like, well, they're reaching this huge, broad audience. Why can't I? And I think those are anomalies, really.
Yeah.
I think that what happens is the curse of being big means that you have to be generic, because only generic things can reach that many people, where the real little diamonds are in like the tiniest niches and industries. And once you figure out what to write about, you're off to the races. You're killing it.
Yeah, you never really reach that point where you've done it all, right?
Yeah.
The more you go into it, the more opens up opportunities. That's what like you said, the scarcity versus abundance mindset is, you think that when you start out, you think that there's just these couple things, but you keep peeling back the onion and you keep finding more things. And it's like, there's not enough time in the day to do all the things you want to. That feeling, I think that's really exciting feeling. Yeah. Every time I experience that feeling a lot. And every time I do, it's like, it's an exciting feeling. It's like, how can we, it's like kind of a scary feeling. It's like, it's so big and it's so vast, but it's also just like exciting to know that there are so many things that haven't been done well. Like there are so many businesses to be built. There are so many media companies there's so much content that is literally not even talked about. Like I watched this movie called My Octopus Teacher, and it's all about this guy who's learning about octopus, and he goes under the water every day and he starts learning things about octopus that have never been recorded in science history. Just because he spent 1 year learning about octopus, probably more than most people will ever spend learning about this small species. Like there are so many things that are undocumented that he found just after 1 year. And that's the kind of idea, like feeling that I experience sometimes, is like, you think it's all been done. And I always tell people like, oh, like they want to start this business, and then they went online and they saw that someone else had started this business, and they say, I guess I'm not going to start that business. But there's just like, I just like, if you just spend a little bit more time, learn about that business, there's so many other approaches, and it's endless. I think that like all people, the scarcity mindset thinks that like everything's been done, but
Yeah.
all problems are man-made, and man is always making new problems, meaning there's always going to be new solutions. There's always going to be new problems to create companies or solutions for that you can build a business or dedicate your life to fixing. So that's one of my big learnings, or what I've experienced after, I've been working on business for 4 years, is that there's always going to be new problems. And that's like exciting to me that, there's never going to be a shortage of problems to work on, I guess.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more. And that feeling you said about just that excitement, I'm always living in there, and I'm thinking to myself, how is everybody else not seeing this? Like one of the examples I see is local stuff, especially in these second tier cities. Like I moved to Nashville like 3 years ago, and I always tell people that reach out, it's like, hey, I'm looking for an idea. I'm like, just write about the city that you live in. And
Yep.
it's so simple and it's so dry, but like, and then it's like, well, why am I going to do that with the newspaper? It's because the newspaper isn't you, and they're never going to be you. And like, I swear to you, if you just learn everything there is to learn about your city, and you go around, you meet the people, you see the restaurants, you meet the businesses, like you can get instantly so much traffic. It builds such a good newsletter list where local businesses will be like begging you to advertise for them. And that's just like one tiny example of all these ideas that go flinging through my head all around the notion of like, go small, get specific, and just be the best at this one tiny specific thing.
To me, that's just so much more fun. Even if you can't make a lot of money doing it, it's so much more fun than going and, working at a corporate job or whatever. There's so many people out there that are that want to start something, that are scared to do it because they don't, but like if they only knew how much opportunity at least is just right in front of your face.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. You've been so gracious with your time, man. We'll start wrapping this thing up. I wanna pick into your brain a little bit about where you see this going. You're at a point right now where you can go down so many different paths, and I'm putting myself in your shoes a little bit. I've been there, and almost there's like a curse of choice, right? We're like, oh, I can go this way, I can go this way, and really deciding on which direction you want to go and doubling down on that, I think is important. So when you're playing tennis, and you got your adrenaline and you're walking home or whatever, and your mind is really clear, and you like stare off into space thinking about like where this is going to be in another 3 years. What comes into your head?
I mean, what I'm thinking about a lot now is like, how can we build like a scalable media company that doesn't rely on me personally to be doing the writing, or to be having the direction, or to have all the ideas. We're trying to build something that has, right now we probably have like 10 to 15 freelancers working on content and building our databases and that sort of thing. I'm trying to think about how can we get to 100. How can we, like I said before, is like our goal is to help entrepreneurs. How can we reach more entrepreneurs and help them with more things? So like, what kind of content can we do, and how can we add more business ideas, or cover more businesses? How can we get into potentially news, and can we do more newsletters and that sort of thing? So I'm thinking about like, how do we grow this company and scale it to a point where it's not based off my own personal brand or anything like that. How can we build something that's more similar to like Forbes or Business Insider? How can we build like a media company? How do you build a company? I'm learning that. And how can we do it that's profitable and scalable? And I mean, my focus has always been on user generated content and relying on data, and building databases and building our own tech and building like a system where all our content writing happens, and we have review and that sort of thing. So it's kind of going to the nuances of running a media business, but I'm trying to figure out how can we take that next step and build and have like a team that is all thinking about the same mission and figuring out how we can grow.
I think you're at the systems step, like you just said, because so much of this has been reliant on you, and you're at that stage like, how do I get out of this thing so I can start to build it, right? You're gonna do it, man. I really been following your journey for the last year and just seeing how far that you've come. I'm like excited for you. You're gonna do some cool things. So I'm excited to watch you grow. All right, so we got starterstory.com, right?
Yep.
Patwalls.com. You used to write every day. You don't
I
write
know.
anymore. What's going on with that, Pat?
We do a lot of writing. I think it might be an interesting point is a lot of my writing is no longer my blog anymore because we do a lot of writing in our company. So we run our company through just basically writing. So like all our projects are planned through these long documents. Something I learned from Amazon.
From Amazon, yeah. I did that same shit with my company.
Yeah. Yeah. How's that going?
It works great, man, because it makes people force like to think things through.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just start spitting ideas through Slack. It's like, oh, okay, you have an idea. Like, tell me exactly what it is that you want to do. And if you can't write it out, then like you don't actually understand it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of my writing is now internal company. I think that's cool. Like it's not, it used to be a lot more about my own personal brand and like Twitter. And I know a lot of people would follow that, but I've learned so much about like my goals, right now are around building a company. And I've just like by writing about that, even though it's probably not interesting to really anyone else, or it's too specific or it's too private. That has been where we've seen some of the most growth is like to really just write about the company and what we're trying to do. So yeah.
That's really cool. I enjoyed your blog a lot. And I hope that you start writing about it. Even things like, you went through a fitness journey, which I think is really cool. And I know that you got really into tennis and your move. I like those things. The blogs that I read every day are actually, there's a guy named Fred Wilson who writes a blog called AVC. He's like a VC, the Seth Godin blog. This guy named Seth Levine who lives in Boulder. I don't know. I've always been into those personal, maybe not daily, but very frequent kind of like, this is what's going on in my life. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you that I noticed that you ain't there anymore. And I hope you pick it back up.
Yeah, for your listeners, I hope we didn't talk too much about, the personal journey. If people are interested in some of you can go into my blog and find a lot of stuff about like SEO and that sort of thing. Maybe, in the show notes, you could put some stuff around. That's applicable to your audience, about content writing and building a blog. Unfortunately, I know we didn't talk about that. I probably could have mentioned that more, but
no, man, I think it's really important. I really, really mean this. One of the most frequent concerns I get is just that paralyzation, I suppose, on there's already so much out there. What is it that I can do that's going to stand myself out? And the answer is just find something specific and bring your own perspective to it. So yeah, there's always room to get into like, some of the technicalities about content marketing, quote unquote, but unless you get that unless you break through that like initial plane of glass, I find a lot of people just constantly write something and then they doubt it, and then they write it and they doubt it. Whereas having a plan and just going with it and like like you said, man, trusting the process. I think it's really important. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate your time.
Cool,
man. All right, so I will link everything up in the show notes. I'll have your Twitter on there so that you can build your following, like I know is so important to you. And we'll do this again, Pat. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
See ya.